Hello, good evening. Can you hear me okay in chat, please? Can you let me know? Thank you. If you can hear my voice, can you let me know that the sound's working all okay? You can, okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to start very shortly indeed. And what I would ask is, if you have any queries or questions about the presentation that I've just finished, hopefully you all have seen it. It's kind of important that you saw it before what I'm about to discuss because it relates directly to it. If you do have any queries or questions, please put them into the chat now. And if you can put a question mark at the start of whatever sentence you write, because you want me to see it and answer it, that will be a great help. But just focus on anything that you are unclear about, that you want to query about what I've presented. If you think there's something that I've said that's wrong or you're something you don't understand, I'll deal with that shortly. And then I'll get into the main part of this live stream, which will last for maybe about an hour, maybe more, depending on how interactive it becomes with the chat. And I'll be getting on to discussing the root issues of the dispute that I dealt with at the end of the presentation in more detail, discussing those more. And as we progress, I'll be letting people in the chat raise any points that they want to make as part of a live discussion. But hold on to your points for the time being. And I'm going to start with a bit of music. So if you've got any questions about what I did in the presentation, pop them in now, and I'll do you some live singing. Anytime you're Llama away, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the Llama walk. Every little alpaca with a little llama pal, you'll find them all doing the Llama walk. Everything's free and easy, do as you damn well pleasy. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there, once you get down Llama way. Every evening, every day, you'll find yourself doing the Llama walk. Oi, anytime you're Llama way, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the Llama walk. Every little alpaca with a little llama pal. You'll find them all doing the llama walk. Everything's free and easy. Do as you damn well pleasey. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there. Once you get down Llama Way, every evening, every day, you'll find yourself doing the llama walk. Anytime you're Llama Way, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the llama walk. Every little alpaca with a little llama pal, you'll find them all doing the llama walk. Everything's free and easy. Do as the damn well pleasey. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there. Once you get down Llama Way, every evening, every day, you'll find yourself doing the llama, doing the llama, doing the llama walk. Oi! Hello there. If the sound's still okay at present, if you can let me know, I'd appreciate that. I'm just getting my notes ready. I hope you're putting any questions in, and I'll go through those in a moment. I'm just looking at your chat now. Let me just catch up. Did you enjoy my live singing? There's a little llama song for you there. Let me just scroll through the chat because I wasn't looking at it. Okay, I'll just go through the questions as I see them. Donna has written, was the £500 all from the GoFundMe? And if so, how can 200 be classed as what's owed to Kelli for something else? Surely that would be separate. To be clear, none of the money went directly from the GoFundMe to Kelli. It was released to John and Jojo, and then they transferred it over and paid it over to Kelli. The issue about whether the £500 relates directly to the GoFundMe or another tranche of the donations is really a rather arbitrary, subjective way of looking at it. The issue about the £200 I will be discussing shortly, so I hope that deals with that question. Ted Mack has made a comment. I don't think it's is it a question or is it a point? Let me just read that, what Ted Mack put. Ted, if it's a question, can you just put it with question marks? Otherwise, I'll assume you're making an opinion. Yes, Sunnyside Weymouth basically said what I said about Donna. Yeah, none of it came direct from the GoFundMe to Kelli. It came via John and Jojo. Sarah says, you're not a driving instructor, are you? No, I don't understand that comment. Alice Young put, did you deduct the 108 still in the GoFundMe from Kelly's total or just John's? I dealt with that money in a consistent manner, the 108. That's the money that John says is currently withheld in the GoFundMe. But the fees have to be taken off of that. They'll be retained by GoFundMe, which means there's a very small balance in there of £10 or £11, £10.92 if I remember correctly, which John will owe to Kelli, and he said that in his spreadsheet presentation. And I dealt in the same way with Kelli. I just dealt with it as an overall figure on the premise that once it is released. But as I said, most of that £108 is taken up of GoFundMe fees, so it's only makes a difference of £10.92. Kelli did does include that figure, or the balance of whatever the balance she thinks is in the GoFundMe still to come out after the fees. Yes, she's included that in the total figures that she's done. I'm just scrolling through the chat at the moment. Justin appeared to like the singing. I'm just paying attention to your comments. Just bear with me for the radio silence. Donna has got a question. Donna asks, why would John set up another GoFundMe when the past two are not getting involved in anything else? I'm only involved in this fundraising issue, I'm afraid. Okay. So, I assume there's no more questions. So I hope that means that everyone understood. Oh, sorry, there's one from Wolves Plays. Wolves Plays asks, so why couldn't the monies from the GoFundMe be sent straight to Kelli? Did it have to go via Jojo first? My understanding is that the money in a GoFundMe can only be released to the person who sets it up, and it was set up by John, and therefore the money was released to John, and then he had to, either he and or Jojo then had to transfer the money over to Kelli, which is one of the big reasons for there being a dispute, because the money didn't go to her directly. If it had gone to her directly, then it obviously would have been a lot more simpler, because it would have cut out any middleman in it. That's an intrinsic part of why there is this dispute, because the monies went to John and Jojo, and then from them on to Kelli. So the issue is, has all the money that was raised, not only in the GoFundMe but from the other donations, did it all go to Kelli or not? Right, so just to some very key points from the presentation. So both parties agreed that there were in excess of £2,000 worth of donations, but they have very different totals that are owing. Just 1 second, just want to look at Sunnyside's question there. What I didn't understand is why payments in bits and pieces are not one whole amount. I don't quite understand that either. Well, we know that Kelli she is explained in her videos, she was asking for the money from John and Jojo, and therefore it would, as an inevitability of that, if John and Jojo were going to oblige her by her request to want the money as soon as possible, it would have to come in bits and pieces. And I think John Harris did make that comment in the last live stream I just did. He said that more or less in the comments. Yes, it would have been a lot more simple if the money had just been paid in one big sum or two sums, because it would have been a lot easier. So as I say, they both agreed that there was in excess of £2,000 in donations, mostly in GoFundMe, but also from a single bank transfer, £250 from one donor, and some small amount of money that was paid directly by PayPal to Jojo, I believe, from some other donors. But we have this big discrepancy between the two parties that's about the dispute about whether any money is owed to Kelli still from John and Jojo. The figure that John presented was £10.92, to be released after the freeze on the GoFundMe is taken off. But as I showed in the presentation, he's made a slight arithmetical error, in my opinion, on his calculation on his spreadsheet, and he does currently owe her to £12, 1 to 12. It's a very small amount, plus he'll owe the extra £10.92. Kelli claims that she's owed £574, but as I explained in the presentation previous to this, she failed to take off the GoFundMe fees. Now, the exact amount of the GoFundMe fees is slightly arguable because I don't know exactly how many donations there were, so the calculation isn't clear. But if we use, for the sake of argument, we use John's figure, which is an amount that's about £95, which is only a little more than the figure that Kelli used for her calculation of £85. It's very little difference. It's just below £100. You find that Kelli's figure is not 574, and it turns out to be roughly £100 less than that once you take that off. So there cannot, even according, the point is that even according to Kelli's own figures, there is not £574 unaccounted for that's still owed to her from John and Jojo. No, it's about £100 less. And I showed the precise figures in the presentation I just did. You may find it useful to open, if you're on a computer or laptop or something, you may find it useful to open up a separate window, open up my presentation I just did, and just fast forward it to the very end and get that last slide that I used. You may find that useful to have that open to refer to again. But just to remind you, I remember I put some red figures and some red boxes on highlighting the key issues. And there were two key issues. One was about a £250 discrepancy about payment in cash, and one was about a £200 dispute regarding an overall bank transaction of £500. Kelli says that only £300 of that related to the fundraiser money and £200 related to something else, which I'll come on to in a moment. So I just got distracted by something I was reading. And that is what I'm going to discuss. We're going to focus on those two issues in this presentation. That's the main of this discussion now. I'm just reading some of the comments. Just excuse me. I'm not trying to be ignorant, but it's difficult for me to talk and to remember what I want to say and to follow up. But so I am trying to read comments. Halted Media says, would it not be better to draw a line under all to move on? How did Paranormal Investigation come to this? Oh, that's a much bigger issue than what I'm dealing with here, I'm afraid. Ted Mack says, I think because of the following they have, it was paid straight to John Jojo. More would donate rather than straight to Kelli. Well, indeed. You know, and it's true. John has said this. You know, if the GoFundMe hadn't been promoted, at least by them, then the amount of money that was raised wouldn't have been anywhere near that amount. I think that's not unreasonable to say. It was organised under the auspices of John Sixthsense on his business Facebook page. Kelli said that she has said that she didn't ask for it to be set up. She didn't want it to be set up, I think she said even. She did subsequently open up her own fundraiser, not on the GoFundMe platform, but on another platform. And I think that's raised at about roughly another £400 to £500. And she set up her Amazon wish list as well for her daughter. I'm not going to get involved in those two things, but they only came about in February time, separate. But indeed, it would have avoided all this if Kelli had set it up and John and Jojo hadn't. But presumably John and Jojo were trying to help a friend out, and they set it up for her and promoted it. I mean, arguably Kelli could have set it up and then John could have promoted it on his channel, but without John's promotion of it, I don't think it would have raised as much money as it did. I think that's a fair enough point that John made. I would seriously doubt that Kelli would dispute that. He was using his profile to help raise money for Kelli's daughter. I'm just reading the comments. Alice Young has made a point, as she says, Alice writes, quote, I think in a court of law it would come to proof over the £500 and the £250, and that there is no proof either way of what happened. Well, that's what I'm going to get into a little bit here, so trying to help that issue, see how far we can get to an understanding of this. Someone called Little Ray of Sunshine says, Kelly stated in her live she had cash from Kelly, then went back on it. That doesn't make sense. Kelly stated in her live she had cash from Kelly. She gave cash to herself. Do you mean something else there? Kelly also stated that her and her husband went to ask John Jojo to set up the GoFundMe. Well, my recollection is that in a more recent live stream, she said that she didn't want them to do it. Now, just to address one point about why am I talking about this? Well, it's the matter's been put well into the public domain by both sides. They've done live streams about it. They've put all the detailed figures about it. They've shown screenshots of stuff, including all the bank transfers on both sides. This is now well in the public domain. Understandably, because of the nature of the allegation, no one likes, this is just a general point here, if an allegation is false and it's made against you, no one likes that. And if it's made and it may impact on your business reputation, then it clearly is an area of concern, and it's understandable why John and Jojo would want to publicly respond to the allegation. I think that's perfectly understandable that they would want to do that. Kelly has done a number of live streams about this. Those live streams, when I last looked, were still up. So if, as she says, it's the police have reopened her case and she doesn't want me to talk about it because of that, why hasn't she taken down her own live streams, especially the more recent one where she went through her statement to the police and all the details on it? If that's her concern about me talking about it, surely she should have taken it down, taken down her own live stream about it, but she hasn't, unless something's changed within the last several hours. But when I last looked this afternoon, it was still there. Just hold your horses a little bit on any questions, because I don't want to lose my thread for the time being. So it's understandable that John and Jojo would want to respond, and whether there's any truth to the allegation about the money that's still owed being anywhere near the amount that Kelly has claimed, I'm just talking hypothetically, whether it is true or whether the partly true or not true, regardless of that, clearly it has had a detrimental impact on the reputation of John Sixthsense's business, because it was organised under the auspices of his business Facebook page. So no, that's it's undeniable. Regardless of what veracity there is to any extent of the allegation that Kelly has made that she's still owed hundreds of pounds from the fundraiser. So you've got a number of stakeholders here who are interested in this issue, which is why I'm talking about it and why I think it's fair for me to talk about it. You haven't just got John and Jojo and their business, and you haven't just got Kelly and her daughter and her family. There's other key stakeholders here as well. And of course, the primary stakeholder in this subject are the people who donated money. So in a way, I'm trying to help the people who donated money have an understanding of, as best as possible as we can reach at present, as to what has gone on. Because of course they donated money for a purpose, and they're entitled to know and want to be confident that the money it reached is intended, the intended beneficiary. So the donors want to know. Also, you've got an issue where John Sixthsense has lots of followers and supporters and people who are paid subscribers to him as a business. And, they'll want to understand, the nature of this dispute and whether or not there is any veracity to Kelli's claims that she still owed this money, because it's a serious allegation. Fundamentally, it comes down to integrity and trust, doesn't it? And given the nature of John Sixthsense's business is to do with as a psychic medium and as a ghost hunter, they're very kind of, for want of a better word, the kind of subjective areas, and you're kind of having to put your trust in the other person to believe what they're telling you. I'm just looking generally. So the issue of trust and integrity is really important. And so someone who's questioning whether he's passed on all the fundraising monies is a serious allegation. So his supporters and the people who pay him money for us, who are paid subscribers, they'll also want to know about this issue. Understandably so. And of course, because it's been so public, and because John Sixthsense is a prominent figure online in the online paranormal community with his ghost hunting business and broadcasting, it's general interest to the community. So you've got a number of stakeholders on this who aren't just about John and Jojo and their business, or about Kelli and her daughter and her family, which is why I think it's quite reasonable that I speak about this issue. Now, I want to get in now. I know you're making various comments in the chat. I'm afraid I can't follow them all. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I will come on to them. So what I would suggest is just hold your horses at the moment on any further comments. And you're probably talking about things that I'm probably about to discuss. So let me just tell you what I'm going to discuss, and then you can make some further points or questions as I start to talk a little bit more. That would be helpful. And we'll do with one, if we can do with one issue at a time, I think that maybe would be easier. Just on the issue, people may remember that John did one of his more recent live streams about this subject. He did a live stream that mostly featured him playing clips of a conversation between him and Kelli, or him, Kelli and Jojo, maybe it's others as well, I don't know. But he was playing these short excerpt clips from a recorded conversation with Kelli. Now, my I watched that live stream, I heard it. My take on that is that because it was just very short clips, there was no context to what was being said. So you couldn't understand, you couldn't determine what they were referring to. So to me, it didn't really demonstrate anything very much. Okay, if arguably nothing, because the context was gone. You were relying on John to say, "Oh, she's talking about this, she's talking about that." So the clips may be perfectly genuine, but without the context, I'm afraid they weren't really helpful for the listener to understand very much from them. So I don't really think they have any significance in what I'm trying to do here. That I couldn't really determine anything from them that was of significance. So I want to talk about three key issues. One is the issue about the payment in cash of £250. The second is about the way that the £500 bank transfer was dealt with, which Kelli has treated as being only £300 to do with the fundraiser. Sorry, £300 to do with the fundraiser and £200 to do with something else. Okay. And there's a third issue, which I've not mentioned yet in any of these live streams tonight, which is that I'll come on to that. I won't say what that is, but I haven't mentioned it yet, but it could equate to quite a lot of money. And it's not, I haven't mentioned it at all yet, but it is connected to this fundraiser in a way. So don't let me forget to deal with the third issue. So I'll deal with one issue at a time, and then once I've dealt with one issue at a time, I'll deal with your comments on that issue. So if you can restrict your comments at this point to do with each comment that I'm making, each point issue that I'm dealing with, that would be really helpful if you could do that in that would be really helpful. Okay, because I do want to read what you're doing, but if some of it's not related to what I'm talking about, it's very hard to distinguish it, and I don't think you want to hear a load of radio silence when I go through all the comments. Okay, but I appreciate the interaction. So the first issue I want to deal with is to do with this payment in cash. And I know a number of you have been making points about this in the live chat about the cash payment. So a reminder, the difference between what Kelly thinks is owed once you take off the GoFundMe fees versus John comes to, well, towards £500 is the difference between what they are claiming, which is nearly a quarter of the total money that was raised. So it's quite a big proportion that amount is in dispute. So the first issue is the cash payment. So this is a cash payment of £250 as a single transaction that John and Jojo say was paid to Kelly. Kelly, however, insists that she didn't receive any cash. She didn't receive that cash payment. So it's very hard to know what to think here as onlookers. You know, do you believe one person or do you believe another person? Now, I know that John has said, I think in one or two of his live streams, that he says that Kelly made a remark in one of her earlier live streams that she did, I think in February, and he says that she made some comment that she did receive some cash. I'm afraid I can't recall that, and I have tried to find it, and I haven't been able to. That's all I can say about it. And Kelly has said, certainly more recent, in her last recent, she did not get that cash payment, that it did not occur according to her. Okay? So there's a complete disagreement on that. Now, my view is that, and I'm sure in hindsight, John and Jojo would probably think this because of what's transpired with this dispute, is that if it didn't occur, they should have obtained a receipt from Kelly when the money was exchanged, if that money was paid to them in cash. Because it was in cash, there's no other way of documenting that, like there would be if it was a bank transfer. Because all the bank transfers, they agree on the figures that were each of the transaction amount they agree on. You know, that's quite easy to prove. But with the payment in cash, the best thing to do was to get her to sign a receipt for the money for £250, and that would have been very helpful for them to have that. Now, maybe they say that she did get a receipt, but from all the live streams that I've heard John and Jojo do, I've never heard them say, "Oh, she signed a receipt for the money." Because if they did have a receipt that she'd signed for the money, I'm sure, along with all the other stuff they like to show of screenshots, they would have showed that receipt for the £250 cash payment. They would have shown, if they had a receipt, I think they would have shown it by now. Now, I did, in some of the questions that I asked both parties, let me read you some of the questions that I asked John and Jojo. But they decided for whatever reason not to respond to any of the questions. Kelly is Jojo is indicated in the live stream that I just did. She said in the live chat that apparently they referred the question to their solicitor and they've been advised not to respond to them, any of them, which is fair enough. They're not obliged to respond to any of these questions, but a lot of these are about very factual details. And to be fair, I think I'm a bit surprised that neither party has replied to any of them. So let me put to you what I asked John and Jojo. I said, regarding the £250 in cash, I wrote to them, Kelli has denied receiving any such money as cash from you regarding the fundraiser. So the first question I had is, what evidence do you have that she received this £250 payment in cash from you? And will you publish any of this evidence? Did she sign a receipt for it? If not, why not? And if yes, please can you email a scan of it, or will you publish it? So I did ask that issue, and I haven't had a response. And they haven't mentioned, I don't have any recollection of them ever mentioning a receipt. And if they did, I think they would have produced it by now. So I'm just going to infer from that a receipt probably doesn't exist. Now, they may say, well, look, at the time, Kelli was their friend, and we didn't think we needed to do a receipt because it was just, payment for the friend, and we didn't think there was going to be a problem about it. They didn't envisage that what was going to happen transpired because Jojo and Kelli were very close friends, and in hindsight, maybe we wish we'd done that now. But thing is, I would say, is that they're acting as a custodian for the money that people have donated. And therefore, they need to make a point of being able to be transparent if this ever queried. And therefore, given that they're handling not their own money, but the money that people have donated, and they're transferring that money over to Kelli, the onus really is on them to show to their donors potentially that they did pass the money on. And so I think they should have got a receipt if they didn't get a receipt from Kelli for the money. Now, some other points they've said about this cash payment. John said a number of times that some of his team members, or Casey, their PA, I think they referred to her as, witnessed the cash being handed over to Kelli. And Casey mentions about she saw Kelli waving the money to the camera. Some points about that. First thing is, based on Casey's witness testimony that she's given on 2 occasions about this on live streams, she wasn't physically present at the location where the money was being handed over. My understanding is, from what she said, is that she saw it as a witness on a video chat between different team members. Okay, so she wasn't physically there where the money was being handed over. She witnessed it being done on a video chat. That's how I understand it. And there's inconsistencies between her account of that incident and John Sixthsense incident. Because on 2 occasions when they've done live streams, Casey has said, I believe, or certainly in the more recent one, Casey said she saw it being done and it happened in Jojo's kitchen. She said, oh, it was in this room where Casey was present. But then John indicates, oh no, it was in the office, in the event centre, and so-and-so and so-and-so witnessed it as well. And he said the same thing quite a while ago as well. So on 2 occasions, John has said that it occurred in the event centre when the money was handed over to Kelli. And the person they put forward as the witness, Casey, has said that when she saw it happen, it was via a video chat, and she saw it happen not in the event centre, but in Jojo's home. So there's even an inconsistency there about where it even happened, which is something I picked up on. And that inconsistency occurred twice in what they've said on their live streams. Certainly John said it twice, that it was in the office in the event centre, is what I inferred him to mean. And Casey said that it was in Jojo's home. So they can't even agree on where it happened. Also, Casey doesn't know the amount of money, because the actual quantity of money, because it was clear from when she last talked about this on camera, she didn't know the exact amount, only that she said she saw the money being handed over. So there is an inconsistency there. Oh, Miss Leopard has put, Casey made it clear she didn't know how much, though. That's exactly what I just said. Indeed, she did indicate she didn't know how much it was. So it's not a very good witness testimony. And also what occurred to me is John has said twice that it occurred in the office in the event centre. Now, you may remember when he did all these voice recordings of Kelly, he said that he got the recordings because he's got CCTV. Can someone let me know in the chat, is the sound still working? Casey is a staff member of Casey is a staff member of John and Jojo's business. They refer to her as their PA. Okay, it's good, thank you. So you may remember when John presented these audio clips of Kelly talking to him about was it about a week or two ago, and he showed all these different clips, and he says, "Oh, the reason I've got these clips is because I've got CCTV in the event centre, and it records audio as well." So I thought, well, hang on, you've said twice that the cash transaction occurred in the event centre. So if you've got CCTV there, and it recorded a conversation you had with her, could it not also have recorded video footage of you handing her the cash? So I asked John and Jojo, and I asked them, do you have CCTV evidence of her being paid this cash? And I thought, if not, why not? I said, you've stated it was paid to her in the office area of the event centre, which you state has CCTV. So I'm assuming, given how much they like to put out recordings of things, if there was a CCTV footage of it being handed over, that they would have put it out there along with all those voice clips, because it would have been a critical thing. I mean, it could well be that there may well be CCTV recording of it but they don't have it anymore because maybe it only lasts a certain amount of time or something like that. You know, they have to, yes, what kind of happens with security CCTV, you know, it doesn't kind of store for an endless amount of time. So I'm assuming that if they did have it, they would have shown that evidence. And again, they haven't got the receipt of it being signed for, a receipt given by Kelly when they were handed the money over. I'm just inferring that because they haven't provided that evidence, and given what else they've shown, I think they would have shown that if they had it. And I did ask them, but they hadn't shown it. So I'm not saying they didn't give the money over. It just seems that they've got a problem with being able to show any evidence of it. Mama Cass has put she's starting to get confused. Let me know, what are you getting confused about there? Mama Cass writes, when speaking of things about Jojo, do you guys mean when they split up before? I'm not sure what's going on in the chat. I'm afraid I can't follow at the moment. If you've got, yes, Donna says it's like a month, it can be like a monthly loop. Yeah. So he got this big problem with this cash payment of £250. It accounts for more than half of the issue of the amount that's being disputed between the two parties that owed. And it seems to come down to, as onlookers, all we can think is, we don't know. The people who claim that they paid it don't have a they paid it, but they don't seem to be able to provide any proof of it apart from witness testimony. And the witness testimony they have is, one, inconsistent or flawed in some way, and two, it's not independent. It's not an independent witness, is it? It's one of their staff members. Mr. Trix writes, CCTV may not be able to be shown due to Data Protection Act. Yeah, but they didn't stop John showing audio clips that he'd recorded, he said, on CCTV of Kelly. So I don't see why that would have stopped him from showing it. Okay, Cass said it was stuff that wasn't being said in the chat. So let me just wrap. So I think I've dealt with the cash issue as much as I possibly can. It's kind of I know it's inconclusive. It's frustrating, but I don't know how that's going to get how that issue can be resolved. One says they paid it, one says they didn't. The person who says they paid it hasn't provided any evidence. Miss Leopard writes, "That's rubbish, Llama. He let slip on previous live. He clicked record on his phone, not CTV as well. He said on that live he could do that as Kelly knew the shop had ceased it, so had given consent." I don't recall that, Miss Leopard. I know that he said the audio came from CCTV, according to him. I remember that part. Actually, I do remember. I don't know whether it was that. See, it may have been a different conversation. But I do vaguely recall quite a while ago he said about, Kelly. He noticed that Kelly was recording something when they were speaking, so he recorded it too. But that doesn't mean it was the same instance. It wasn't the same day. It could have been something else. Any comments related to this cash payments issue before I move on to the next point? No, I'm not suggesting that any of the voice notes that John played were fake. I'm not suggesting they were fake. I'm just saying that because there's no context on when they were played, you really can't determine anything from them. You could do if you played it without any, just without, by showing a longer clip, potentially, yes. But to me, they didn't really demonstrate anything because you couldn't determine anything from them because the context was absent other than the context that he did by introducing them. So as a source, they could, they were compromised in that way in terms of the way they were presented, at least. Any comments about the cash issue? Donna's put the company's house, they were dissolved as a company in 2018, then the business was set up 4 weeks ago. Well, I would correct that. They registered as a new company several weeks ago, but they were a business before that. You can be a business without being a company. You don't need to be registered with the company's house to be a business. Plenty of businesses are not private limited companies. Abigail's written, John said at first it was done at his office. He said on 2 occasions it was done at his office. He said it more recently when Kelly was in there in Jojo's home with them, and he said it before then as well. But even on the same occasion, on live streams, when he said it was the office, he said that after Kelly said, she thought it occurred in Jojo's house. So it's not a very consistent recollection of where this handing over money that they claim occurred. It seems to be quite a lot of discussion about voice notes and recordings and CCV and things. Is there any more anyone wants to say that I haven't picked up on about this payment in cash issue? Because I can't really go any further than what I have about that amount. I'm going to move on to the second issue now that I want to discuss. Yes, I agree with Dee Dee. She says, I take the voice notes with a pinch of salt unless it's the whole conversation. You could only play clips they want you to hear. Well, you couldn't determine anything from them because there was no it was just little clips and you couldn't determine what they were actually speaking about. I mean, if he had released a longer period, then maybe you could, but I didn't find them helpful at all. What I would have found a lot more helpful if they'd shown, here's a receipt of her signing for it, and here's CCTV camera footage of her being paid some cash. That would have been good. That would have been much more helpful. So it really comes down to is whether you personally want to believe one side or the other, whether that payment in cash was made to them. That's all really comes down to on that. Next issue is the £500 bank transfer transaction. Alice Young puts, wouldn't it be the easiest thing to show actual GoFundMe receipts? If they released it in drips and drabs, it would show it officially. Yes, but the issue isn't about the it's about the issue of John and Jojo transferring that money to Kelli. It's not an issue of the GoFundMe money going directly to Kelli. It's about, they both agree on the overall amount, that it was £2,003 in the GoFundMe. They both use that figure. So I assume that they both agree with it, that Kelli is not disputing that figure. And in terms of all the other transfers of payments that were made from John and Jojo to Kelli, other than that £250 cash payment that they claim they made to Kelli, all the others were bank transfers, you may recall. And both John and Kelli have shown screenshots of those 4 bank transfers, those 4 transactions, and they all show the same amounts. So there's not a dispute on those issues. But the problem is, one of those figures is for £500. So you remember that's the second issue that I identified with the red box around it towards the end of my presentation. Because Kelli says that only £300 out of that £500 figure related to the fundraising money. Because she says that the £200 of that 500 related to her being reimbursed by John and Jojo for some materials that she bought for the Sixth Sense event centre. And she was being reimbursed those expenses because she bought materials to the value of the receipts, actually says added up to £200 or thereabouts. So that's why there's a £200 difference there. And it's that £200 and the £250 that are the key discrepancy between the two parties of why you get a figure approaching £500. Kelli, in one of her live streams, showed some screenshots of private messages between her and John and Jojo. I can't say whether they're genuine or not. I'm not suggesting they're not genuine. I'm not suggesting that at all. But obviously, I can't vouch for the veracity of them. And in one series of messages, John seems to indicate that he's going to make a payment of £500 to her by transfer, and that £300 is going to relate to the fundraiser, and £200 is going to relate to reimbursing her for expenses. Although he says something along the lines of, I can't remember exactly what it says, but he said something like, I'm paraphrasing, he says something like, I didn't know you wanted that money, you were expecting to get that money. And a couple of days after that, I think it is that the transfer of £500 is made. So Kelli's argument is that she's got an email from him saying that of that £500 transfer, 300 was to do with the fundraiser, and 200 was to do with the reimbursement of her expenses. However, John made it clear when he did his spreadsheet live stream that the whole £500 was to do with the fundraising money, the whole 500, not 300. And he may dispute the veracity of those screenshots that Kelli presented. I don't know whether they're genuine or not. I'm not suggesting they're not genuine. I don't know. But John said the whole £500 was to do with the fundraising money being paid to Kelli. And he said, regarding Kelli saying that she bought nearly £200 worth, or just over £200 worth of materials in total for the event centre, for it to be redecorated prior to a pay-per-view event. John has said on a couple of occasions that she didn't provide materials costing that she only provided some candles. So you've got a direct dispute there between those two parties about how much money or how much detail she provided for that, and I'm going to elaborate on that point in a moment. But one really key thing I need to say about that transaction of £500 on the screenshots, certainly at least that John and Jojo showed. On the screenshot of the bank transfer, it says £500, and then it says something like, you know, when you make a bank transfer to someone, you can put like in a description of what it's about. So you put in all the person's bank details and the amount, and then it often allows you to put in a description about what it's for. Yeah, and in that little description, it says GoFundMe. I think, and then maybe Kelly's daughter's name on it. So they were defining that £500 payment as being related entirely to the fundraiser for Kelly's daughter. So I think that because of that, that's very significant. And it means that if this goes down a legal or criminal police route of any kind, or a private legal case, John and Jojo will have strong grounds to say, no, the £500 was entirely to do with the GoFundMe, the fundraiser. And it's because it's stated so on the transaction, on the actual bank transfer. Assuming that evidence is correct, I don't know whether on Kelly's side, when she received it, she would have seen that. But when on the transfers that she showed the screenshots of, it just showed the single line of the amount and the date or who it was from. I don't recall seeing it where it said what it related to. So I think that legally, that favours probably, just my personal opinion, is that it's going to favour John and Jojo on that transaction of £500, that it is entirely to do with the fundraiser, to do with the GoFundMe, because it states it on the transaction. It didn't. If it said £300 fundraiser or GoFundMe plus reimbursement of expenses or something, then it would completely back up what Kelly claimed. Now Kelly can say, oh look, I've got this screenshot of a private message prior to the payment being made, and he clearly says, oh, it's 300 for this and 200 for that. But that only, at best, that only demonstrates an intention. So you might be able to prove the intention, but if the transaction is then later made and it says it's entirely to do with the fundraiser, yes, I'm speaking live now. Hello, Dandy Paranormal. Yes, I'm speaking live. I'm just not being able to read any of the chat at the moment, but I will. I haven't forgotten. Where was I? Yeah. So she may be able to demonstrate the intention of how that £500 was going to be shown, what that £500 represented, for 300 for the fundraiser, £200 for reimbursement of her expenses that she incurred, that she claims she incurred. But in the actual event, the bank transfer transaction says on the screenshot from John Jojo, it says, at least on their screenshot that they showed, it says something like, I think it says GoFundMe, and then next to that it's got the Kelly's daughter's name next to it. So it's very clear what it refers to. So I think on legal grounds, Kelly is going to be, in my opinion, Kelly is going to be in difficulty to demonstrate that that £500 wasn't entirely due to the £200. Okay. So the issue is, we can't conflate £200 that you can't conflate £200 that Kelly says that she was due to be owed because of expenses she incurred on behalf of John Sixthsense's business. You can't conflate that with the fundraiser. Okay? They're two separate issues. And at the moment, according to the version of events of Kelly, she's saying that that £200 relates to the fundraiser. But if you want to perceive that the £500 transaction was wholly to do with the fundraiser, as John Sixthsense said, it means there's a separate issue of £200, which Kelly is saying that she's owed by John Jojo for expenses that she incurred for materials for the redecoration of the event centre prior to a pay-per-view event. And that does not relate to the fundraising issue, and therefore that's a separate dispute to the fundraising dispute. You can't conflate that figure in and start saying, oh, it's £200 owed to me as a fundraising issue, when if you want to interpret and perceive it in the way that I've suggested, that £200 actually is £200 that would be owed, according to Kelly, called to for her expenses or out-of-pocket expenses that she incurred for the benefit of their business. That's what she claims. So if you want to perceive it that way, it means the figures change. It means that for the argument of Kelly, instead of a figure approaching £500, you need to take the £200 off that, so that the figure comes down to about it would come back to about £275-ish. There's a dispute between them of £275 that Kelly is claiming, and as a separate dispute, she would then say, oh, I'm owed £200 for out-of-pocket expenses, but that doesn't relate to the fundraiser. So you can't conflate the two if you want to perceive it in the way that I've suggested. This is just my personal opinion. You can interpret it in different ways. It's kind of swings and roundabouts. So Sunnyside Wayman says, if not the fundraiser taking it to court, it's not the fundraiser taking it to court, is it? So if it's Kelly that is taken to court, she would just still put claim 200. Yeah, but the point is that the £200 she says she incurred in providing materials as an expense claim, she did that effectively as a staff member. She was a member of his ghost hunting team, so she's technically a member of staff. That's the way it's presented to us by John Sixthsense, that his ghost hunting members, his team members, are staff, which is why they've been going out during lockdown, because it's a business and there is staff. So effectively, it means that expenses issue is it's an employee-employer staffing personal dispute separate from the fundraiser. Based on that, just stress that's predicated on what I've just been saying and suggesting. Okay, you can look at this in different ways, but I think if it can be demonstrated that the £500 was entirely to do with the fundraiser, that's the way it would be looked at. Probably, I would suggest that that's probably the way it would be looked at, and therefore it ought not to be said by Kelly, oh, he still owes me £475 or whatever it is to do with the fundraiser, but the figure's about 270 quid or something, and he owes me £200 because of an expenses claim, which is separate. Yeah, and an expenses claim that's not been paid. So if it's an expenses claim that she says that she's entitled to be reimbursed for, that means that it's basically a dispute between an employer and an ex-employee, which is not a police issue. That's a civil issue, and it's a disagreement between an employer and an ex-staff member. Or if Kelly wants to put it a different way, it's an issue between two ex-friends. So it's not a police issue, it's a civil matter. The only potential police criminal issue is to do with the fundraiser. So it changes the legality of the scope of where that dispute lays. Okay, And just to, I want to look at some questions that I asked both of the parties about this issue. Let me read you some questions that I asked to John and Jojo about this dispute. Let me just find it. Right, this is what I asked John and Jojo last week. I said, regarding Kelly claiming she incurred costs of £200 or thereabouts on materials to redecorate the Sixth Sense event centre, and I asked them several questions. I said, was Kelly authorised or given approval or permission to incur any such expenses on behalf of the Sixth Sense business with view to her being reimbursed? No answer. 2. Did Kelly submit an expenses claim in respect of the above? No answer. Did Kelly submit to you receipts regarding her purchases in respect of the above? No answer. Have you paid Kelly anything in respect of the above? No answer. Do you consider that she's entitled to being reimbursed for any of these expenses? If yes, how much? If not, why not? No answer. Do you accept that she incurred such costs for the benefit of your business? If yes, how much? No answer. And as I said earlier, they haven't replied to any of my questions, and they've said, Jojo indicated in the last live stream, the reason for that is because they've been advised not to by their solicitor, which is fair enough. But anyway, I put the questions to them. I tried to find out about that. To my mind, so what I'm trying to get at in respect of the initial question is, if a member of staff is incurring expenses for their employer for a business, you would, especially if it's amount like £200, which is quite a lot. It's not like 10 quid, 20 quid. £200, quite a lot of money for you to incur on behalf of your employer. You would hope that that person had understood before they did it that it had been authorised by their manager or whoever, and that they were going to get it reimbursed, and that they'd been given a budget, for example. So that's what I was trying to get at, but I didn't get an answer. So I asked Kelly some similar questions, just to say Kelly has said publicly that she did provide receipts to John and Jojo. I'm sure she has said that publicly, that she did provide receipts for the expenses that she incurred. Okay. But let me find the questions that I put to Kelly about these £200 in expenses that she said she incurred. Bear with me, and then I will deal with what you've put in chat. Let me just find it. Okay, I've just found it. Sorry about that. So some of the questions that I put to Kelly, the queries that I put to her, in relation to this £200 expenses that she said she incurred, I asked her a number of questions, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm trying to get at. So I said, regarding you incurring costs of £200 or thereabouts on the purchase of various materials to redecorate the Sixth Sense event centre. First question I asked her, did you ever receive any kind of explicit authorisation, approval or permission in advance from John Jojo for you to incur the above stated expenses on behalf of the Sixth Sense business? If yes, by what means did this advance authorisation occur, e.g. an email? And do you have any evidence of this authorisation? No reply from Kelly. She chose not to reply to any of these questions. Did John explicitly ask you to purchase such materials? If yes, do you have any evidence of this, such as an email? No answer. Did you ever submit to John Jojo a full expenses reimbursement claim in respect of the above expenditure you incurred? If yes, on which date did you submit it? And do you have a copy of it? No answer. Do you still have all of the receipts or copies of scans on them? No answer. Did you submit to John Jojo a complete set of receipts in support of an expenses reimbursement claim of £200? If yes, on which date did you submit these, and did they return them to you? And she hasn't answered that, but I think she has said on the live stream that she did give receipts to them. Okay, next question. On which date or dates did you incur these costs? No answer. Did you incur these expenses in your capacity as being a staff member of the Sixth Sense business? No answer. Were you ever given any form of document or briefing about the staff expenses policy of the Sixth Sense business? No answer. Hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to get at there with those questions that I put to both parties. So I'm heading towards the way that I'm going to maybe perceive Kelly's figures is that really the amount that she's claiming that she's still due for the fundraiser is not 574, because you need to take the GoFundMe fees off, as I explained earlier. So you need to take nearly £100 off that. Plus you need to take off the £200, because I think it's likely to be perceived that the whole 500 transaction did relate to the fundraiser. So you need to take that off, which means you come down to a net figure of about, something in the region of about £270, £280, roughly like that. And then there's a separate dispute. You've got the £200 expenses claim, which I think should be perceived as an employee-employer dispute, because she incurred those expenses, according to her, while she was a member of staff, a member of that team. And therefore, she was incurring expenses for the benefit of her employer, for the benefit of the Sixth Sense business. So it's not, I don't see how that can be a police issue. That's a civil issue. Nothing to do with the fundraiser. She may say, oh, well, I wasn't paid by them. Well, or that she did it as a friend. Maybe you could say, oh, it was done as a friend's. Well, then even more, it's not going to be a police issue, I don't think. It's going to be a civil issue of someone saying, you owe me this money, and the other person saying, no, I don't, or something like that. You know, so a key thing would be, can Kelly demonstrate that she was authorised to go out and incur those expenses beforehand in advance? That would be a great help to her if she can demonstrate that. Has all of her receipts, which I think she indicated that she does have all of her receipts. I think she indicated that she did submit some sort of claim to them. But I think you have to take that separately. That's just my personal perspective on it. Now, before I come to the third issue, which I alluded to earlier, I've not mentioned yet, and I will deal with that. But let me look at your comments while I've been discussing this expenses £200 issue. If you want me to read your comment, I'd appreciate if you could put it in now. That'd be very helpful. And if you've got a question, if you can put a question mark at the start of your sentence, that would be really helpful, and I will try to address it. I'm afraid it would take me quite a while to read all the chat while I've been chattering away, and I don't want to give a load of air time. I'm just randomly looking at some of the things. Please put your comments in now if you want me to pay attention to something in particular. Wolver's Play says, so the £200 is a civil matter, then as she wasn't employed, as she wasn't paid. Well, regardless of whether she was paid or not as an employee, that would still make her like voluntary staff, in my perception. John refers to his team members as staff. And if they're not staff, if they're not employees, then why are those people going out during lockdown doing ghost hunting? Those people shouldn't be doing that. So I'm not suggesting they're not staff, but if Kelly's going to say, oh, I wasn't a member of staff, well, I think and effectively she was a member of staff, whether she was paid or not. Whether these people all have employment contracts, I have no idea. But it appears to me that it's an employee-employer dispute of an expenses claim, or it's a dispute between friends that they bought £200 worth of stuff for someone else's business and they want the money back. Well, that's going to be a rather difficult legal case if Kelly's trying to take legal action for that, because she needs to demonstrate that she was authorised to incur those costs in the first place. Maybe she was given authorisation to do that, but was it written authorisation? Was it documented? Because I know if I was working for a manager or a business and they wanted me to incur £200 out of my own pocket, well, I probably wouldn't do it. But if I did, I'd want it bloody well put in writing beforehand, very clearly, about what amount of money I could spend and what it was for, what sort of things I could buy before I spent the money. If it was my £200, damn right I bloody well would. Quite frankly, I wouldn't do it for that amount of money. I don't care. You know, if I want to run £200 on behalf of my employer, I damn well want to be sure that I'm going to get it back. Let's have a look at some of the other things. Tammy writes, unpaid staff volunteer. Still technically staff though, aren't they? Kirsty writes, I thought you could only claim if it was over 1,000 or between 3,000 and 5,000. I'm not sure what you mean by that comment. Maybe you're referring to a small claims court or something. I don't know. Mama O writes, Miss Leopard, that fundraiser was instigated by another team member who was contacted by the family, not John. Everyone was reimbursed. I don't quite follow that. I think you're having a bit of a discussion. So it's hard for me to know what I'm supposed to be reading. Geraldine writes, I'm enjoying listening to you, Llama. You're very succinct and articulate. Thank you very much. Donna writes, there's very little evidence shown, to be honest. Bank, PayPal and GoFundMe deposits were never shown, only what they sent to Kelly. Well, the bank transfers that were made between Kelly and made from Jojo or John to Kelly were shown by both sides. So we do know about that. In terms of the money that was paid over, the only issue of dispute as a transaction is the £250 in cash, which I've already dealt with. I think someone asked about whether Kelly's daughter is sick. Kelly said she put a status up at the beginning of March saying that her daughter, the doctors have said that she's no longer got cancer, but that she still needs to continue and complete the chemotherapy sessions. Alice writes, I think a private chat between both could have solved all the issues. Well, I kind of alluded to that in the first thing. I think it's a shame. Oh, one thing I did ask Kelly was, I did ask her regarding a formal demand for the fundraising outstanding balance owed. Did you ever submit to John Jojo a formal written request or demand stating the outstanding amount you considered to be owed to you, and with a breakdown statement calculation, for example, sending them a letter or an email? And I said, if yes, on what date will you publish or provide a copy of that? And if no, why didn't you do that? And I put, would that not have been prudent before going public with the dispute and or reporting it to the police? So I think you can see my opinion on that. Whether she did or didn't do that, I don't know. For me, given the amount of money and what the issue is, sending some text messages or something on Facebook Messenger really isn't really, in my view, is not the best way to handle it once it gets to that level of dispute. Let me look. I'm just scanning through the comments here. Abigail writes, sorry, but Joanne hasn't asked for money back for when she put money in the events into when she could have. I don't understand that. By Joanne, you mean Jojo? I don't quite get that. Or did you mean Kelly? I'm afraid I'm missing the point there. Donna says, I think they were more friends than a staff relationship, hence this. Well, yes, both. They were both, weren't they? if she's buying money for a business and she is a team member of a business and technically staff, according to John Sixth Sense, and that's why she's going ghost hunting with them as a member of staff, whether paid or unpaid, voluntary or not, and it's an expenses claim, I think likely to be an employer dispute, regardless of whether that was friends. It's a civil dispute. It's not a criminal matter, surely, legally, in my opinion. It's not a police matter. And therefore, it can't be an issue of fraud or embezzlement. And it's got nothing to do with money being owed from a fundraiser in respect of that amount of money for the £200. Dan D, I've only ever seen one video where you show your face on camera. I've never found more. Are there more, please? I've never shown my face on camera, so I don't know which one you're referring to. Maybe you just imagined it. Sorry, I'm missing things out. I'm just trying to scroll through and pick things that might be relevant. Alice writes, I think the moral of the story is that it's a checkmate. Don't do business with a friend. Well, indeed, there's the saying, don't mix business and pleasure, isn't there? Don't mix business and pleasure. Mr. Tricks writes, you say no comment usually means they're guilty, but they both made no comment. Well, it doesn't mean no. Referring to a comment that someone else made, apparently. You know, I understand why neither of them would want to reply to my questions. I don't think you should infer anything necessarily bad about that. If they both involve solicitors, it's understandable why they might not want to respond to me. I did make it clear to them that whatever they did respond to me would be on the record official, and that I'll be able to use it. But a lot of the questions I was asking them were on more trying to verify certain details. And Kelli has said that now the police have reopened her case, although John Sixth Sense, in the last live stream in the chat, I think he said that the police say, he insists that the police say there is no open case with the police. Let me get to DD says about, I'm not going to get involved in that. Donna writes, anyone else trying to picture what Llama looks like from his voice? Can't help you there. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I can't see anything that I need to refer to or read out or answer or respond to in the chat. If I've missed something, I'm sorry. It's free feel to put it in. Can you let me know? Can you? Is the sound still good? Can Mama Cass or Liz put in the chat that you can still hear me? Okay. You can. Good. Okay. Right. So I'm going to move on to I alluded to a third issue that I've not mentioned at all yet. It's connected to the fundraiser. And it does potentially relate to money that Kelli could argue is due to her daughter. People who've been following this may recall. So Wolvers Place. So what is it? Kelli owed 270 odd. Well, depending on how you want to look at things, I would say if based on Kelli's figures, if you made some adjustments to them in the way that I've suggested, I would suggest that Kelli should say, rather than saying she's owed 470 odd quid after the GoFundMe expenses, that it's rather 270 quidish, I can't remember the exact figure, to do with the fundraiser, and an extra 200 to do with her expenses claim. It adds up to the same amount of money, of course, but I think the significant difference is one, legally it's potentially a criminal matter versus a civil matter, and the bigger issue is in terms of other people who are involved, is if you donated money to that fundraiser, it would mean that an extra £200 has actually been forwarded on to Kelli for her daughter. You see, that's the significant issue, and that it's actually a £200, rather than being a £200 outstanding in relating to that £500 transaction. It's actually a £200 expenses dispute that she's owed money privately between her, either as friends or as staff and an employer. I hope that helps there. But of course, that's according to Kelli. John says that he paid her £250 in cash, which almost negates that 270, if you look at it from that point of view. And the difference there is there's the £22.92 that there's £22.92 that's currently, according to John's own figures, that he owes £22.92, because I revised the figure from £10.92 because he's made a slight error. So actually it's £22.92, £12 owed now, according to him, or according to his own figures, but he omitted, I think, just by an honest mistake, plus £10.92 when the balance is released from the GoFundMe. Okay, so that basically adds up to the difference. Because of the £250, and then there's that minor £4 difference, people may recall, between the PayPal amounts that each side says. One said it was £26 and Kelli said that it was at least £30, so it was only a £4 difference. So I haven't bothered to get involved in that because it's such a small amount of money. I did deal with it in the presentation before, though. Tammy says, regardless of the amount, it still doesn't belong to them, does it? Well, I can't comment on that because I don't know the nature of the expenses dispute. I don't know if she was authorised to spend that money. I don't know whether they'll agree with the expenses claim, so I can't comment on that. I mean, that's basically money out of their business. It's money in their business, isn't it? They're going to have to, if they're going to honour that expenses claim, that will come out. It's a business expense. I can't express an opinion about that expenses claim because I don't know what occurred. Kelli says that she incurred that amount of money and that she's got receipts for that amount of money. I'm not here to say that's true or not, but I think one would have hoped that before she spent the money, she got some sort of adequate authorization. Maybe it was just verbally. Remember, they're friends. So in hindsight, maybe she wishes that she did get it in writing, but she didn't. I don't know whether she did or she didn't. I don't know. Donna writes, maybe if they do owe £470, they thought the solicitor would worry her. The other thing to say, or thing I'd say about this is, look, just suppose if the amount that they do owe is about £270, £280 for the GoFundMe, that is the amount that's outstanding, just hypothetically. I'm not saying it is, because I'm capturing my words carefully here. Supposing it was, right, think about the amount of negative publicity, reputational damage that John's business has received because of this dispute from Kelli, because of the allegations that she's made. Then, and just to emphasise, of course, I'm only reporting on the allegations that she's made, as he has done himself, reported on those allegations. Okay? So, regardless of whether that £270 dispute, if we just hypothetically, if we use that figure, roughly about nearly 300 quid, right? That's still owed for the fundraiser, just hypothetically. Given the amount of negative publicity that John has received, regardless of whether he does or does not owe that money, right? But if you just played devil's advocate and you said that he did owe that money still from the fundraiser, you're just playing devil's advocate, right? Do you think that they would have risked not paying an amount of money of below £300 in balance on a fundraiser, which would have been extremely controversial and reputationally damaging to his business because it was done under the auspices of his business? He advertised it on his Facebook page, right? Bearing in mind, right, say he lost 10 paid subscribers to his premium subscriber service due to this. Just say 10 people found out about this dispute, about what Kelli was saying, and they thought, oh, I don't like him anymore. I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm not going to pay my subscription anymore. Just say that 10 people in February decided to unsubscribe to him. Say, for example, they're paying £5 a month. I don't think it is the figure, but it's a bit more. But just say it's £500 as an arbitrary figure. 10 people, that's 50 quid. For the rest of this year, he would lose revenue of £500. 50 quid times, say, 10 months, 500 quid. So if he loses, for example, 10 paid subscribers because of this dispute, he's lost £500 in revenue just between March and December this year due to that, as an example. Whether, regardless of the allegations are correct or not, people may have already come to a view about it and decided to unsubscribe. Yeah? Is it worth the risk of not paying 300 quid or less, if we use that figure, or even if it's 500 quid, the 480 quid figure, at the risk of losing some subs? Because if it's only 10, that's 500 quid, isn't it? At least. So, I don't know, maybe, I just something to think about. It's just something to think about there. I want to get on to the third issue, which I haven't addressed yet, though, but I just want to look at your comments. Sunnyside writes, a lot of them cancelled their subscribers because they were blocked as they were commenting on Kelly's live. I'm not going to get involved in that. It's beyond the scope of what we're discussing. On the other hand, Kelli has gained subs and viewers. Well, yeah, maybe she has. She doesn't have subscribers, the paid subscribers, does she? I don't know. Right. Let me get on to the third issue. This is why I think it's reasonable for me to talk about this, because you've got a lot of people who follow John Sixthsense, or supporters of him, and some think he's are paid subscribers even to him, so they pay money to him. And with this dispute, with this negative publicity, whether there's any veracity to these allegations against him, it may affect his revenue stream. So it's relevant to the people who follow and maybe subscribe to him as paid subscribers, that they'll want to understand this dispute. And given that both parties have been so public about it, I don't think it's unreasonable that I've talked about it in the way that I have. And I've couched my words carefully here. So, the third issue, which I've not talked about yet, people who follow this may recall, in the live stream at the very end of December that John Sixthsense did when he announced this GoFundMe fundraiser for Kelly's daughter, John said something about an amount of money that he was prepared to contribute for the fundraiser. I don't know whether anyone remembers this. It's not really been talked about much. Well, I haven't mentioned it yet. John never mentioned it in his live stream about the spreadsheet. Kelli has fleetingly referred to it. It's not part of her figures of 574 whatever, or part of a statement that she gave to the police that she showed. And what this is, John said, don't know the exact words, I'm paraphrasing, but this is very close to it. He said in that live stream at the end of December that he was prepared to put towards the fundraiser a month's worth of his ad revenue. Maybe people can put in the chat whether they recall that. Okay. Now, he wasn't any more explicit than that about what he meant by that ad revenue. I infer that he meant a month's worth of his ad revenue from Facebook, or he could have meant the ad revenue he gets on YouTube, or he could have meant both. Yeah. So this aspect of this hasn't been brought into this dispute really at all, or mentioned much at all by either party. It seems to have been kind of glossed over. But there's this other aspect to it, which is much bigger. I don't think Charlie said he said both. Well, I don't think he was specific. He just said his ad revenue. So you could infer that as meaning the total ad revenue. And I take it to mean the ad revenue gets from Facebook and YouTube, right? Now, people may recall, when he did his live stream on about the 19th of February with the spreadsheet, he also gave out figures of his business's forecast revenue streams. And because he was responding to people saying that he was financially in difficulty. And so he said, I get X £1,000 a month from this, and X £1,000 from this, and that, and that, and that, and that. And that my monthly business revenue forecast, it comes in at about this X thousands of pounds. People may recall that. Now, when he did that, he mentioned the figures related to ad revenue. So, which was very salient here. So let me just get these figures for you. He said that these monthly forecast revenue stream from his YouTube ad revenue alone is, I believe he said it was £1,500. And he said that for Facebook, he just gave a global figure for Facebook ad revenue plus Facebook stars. And I believe he said that was £2,000. But I don't know how that is broken down. I don't know what part of that is stars and what part of that is the ad revenue for Facebook. That he didn't break it down. I don't know what proportion it might be in. I'm afraid I don't know. But obviously it's quite a large sum. It could be he's got the £1,500 YouTube ad revenue, but we don't know whether he meant the total ad revenue for YouTube and Facebook or something else, some other sort of ad revenue. We don't know. But it could be anything between maybe in the region of 1,000 to, because if it's £2,000 Facebook ad revenue plus stars, just suppose, I believe that's the figure. I think I'm correct. That's the figure he said. Even if you said it was 50-50, I don't just arbitrary figure. Just say it was £1,000 in Facebook ad revenue, right? You could say, well, that's £1,000 of ad revenue a month from Facebook, and you said you got £1,500 a month ad revenue from YouTube, which is potentially maybe £2,500, maybe. So when you look at this dispute in terms of Kelly's saying that she's still owed several £100s for the fundraiser, You could also look at it as this kind of slightly related issue. It's certainly related, but it's not really to do with the donation as such. But John, you could say maybe it was a pledge. Maybe that's not an unfair word to use. That John pledged that he would donate or put into the fundraiser a month's worth of his ad revenue. He didn't say which month. He said this at the very end of December. He didn't say whether he meant December, but if he didn't mean December, presumably he meant January. Kelly didn't leave his team until roughly the 12th or the 13th of February, I believe. So it meant that Kelly could say, well, you said you'd give me a month's for my daughters for the fundraiser, you'd contribute a month's worth of your ad revenue. And you said, it's a full figure sum could be an issue here. Now, it's a pledge of some kind. I don't think it's legally binding. Whether you consider it maybe he's got a moral obligation to do it is a very subjective issue. It depends on your outlook, isn't it? That's really a moral obligation, arguably. That's a subjective issue. I don't think legally you could say that he's due to do it. But given that Kelly didn't leave until February, if the month was December, well, she was still a team member then. It could have been paid in January. And if it was to do with ad revenue for January, it could have been paid in early February to her. We don't know. So I did ask John Jojo about this, and Kelly too. I did ask, let's see what I wrote to Kelly about this. I put to Kelly regarding John's ad revenue pledge. I wrote to Kelly, when John announced the fundraiser for your daughter on the 30th of December, if I remember correctly, he stated on that live stream that he would contribute a month's ad revenue from the Sixth Sense business to the fundraiser. I infer that John meant either Facebook ad revenue or both Facebook and YouTube ad revenue. He didn't specify though. Regardless of which he meant, I believe this would be worth or could be worth in excess of £1,000. So I asked Kelly, were any such monies paid to you in respect of the above pledge? She didn't respond to that or any of these questions, of course. Did you ever submit a request to John Jojo for any monies in respect of the above pledge? No answer. Or what happened about this pledge and the related monies? No answer. Kelly has mentioned it passingly on her live streams, though, but it's not part of her what she reported to the police. It's not part of that dispute. It's not to do. I mean, of course, it's not to do with a donation that someone's donated. That's definitely owed to her. You know, it's a more wishy-washy thing. But I think it is related to this dispute, or it is certainly related to the fundraiser. So I asked John Jojo, I said, regarding the ad revenue pledge, I said, when John announced the fundraiser for Kelly's daughter, he pledged on that live stream that he would contribute a month's ad revenue from the Sixth Sense business to that fundraiser. I inferred that John meant either your Facebook ad revenue or both your Facebook and YouTube ad revenue. He didn't specify. Based on figures John published in February, I estimate this pledge to be worth anywhere between £1,500 and £3,000, so a substantial sum. And then I said, well, as far as I understand, Kelly never received any of that money, and no such item appeared on John's spreadsheet that he did. It wasn't. I don't think it was even mentioned passingly by him, as far as I can recall. I said, why was this money never paid by you to Kelly as part of the fundraiser? No answer. And I asked, have you retracted this pledge? No answer. So they may say something like, I can envision them saying something like, well, given what happened, and all the acrimony and all the trouble that we've been caused by all of this, we don't feel as if we want to give her this money. And I've got a vague recollection that they may possibly have said that at one point. I can't remember. Possibly, I've got a vague, can't remember on that. Can't swear to that. But as I just mentioned, if it was December, if the month's revenue was December's, then Kelly didn't leave till February. And if it was the month was January's, she didn't leave till early February. So arguably you could say, well, yeah, but when you were due to probably pay it to her as part of the fundraiser, she hadn't left by then. There wasn't this dispute, although there was a private dispute, of course, wasn't there? She was pushing for this money before that. I'm not getting involved in the headstone issue on this live stream. Maybe I could do another live stream about the headstone. I've indicated that I've got some thoughts about that issue. I'm not going to get involved in that here, though, I'm afraid. So that is the third issue I want to discuss. And I think I've kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover tonight. But let me look at your comments. So if you want me to, I'll just have a scan through, but if there's something you want me to bring to my attention, please put it in the chat now, in case I might miss it. And I'm quite happy for any general discussion about what I've presented tonight and said tonight. If you want to put anything in the chat now, and I'll focus purely on the comments from this point forward. I've finished really on what I wanted to say about this. Mama Cass writes, if it's in the public domain, it's up for debate. Silence is senseless, because you're probably the most respectful in making your point from all drama channels. Well, you know, I haven't said anything about this at all for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Alice says, I think both need to honestly set down figures with proof from PayPal and GoFundMe and go with the hard facts rather than what they think. It seems both have misunderstandings about it all. I think maybe an element of misunderstanding has occurred at different points in different respects, possibly, yes. And as I said, I think it would have, you know, it's kind of a shame that when people were friends and then it's got to the point of involving the police. You know, how did they get from? How did that get to there? And did it rather escalate rather quickly? Perhaps it seems, you know, could that not have been dealt with another way rather than getting to that point? I mean, it's a big leap from being best friends to then having this big dispute, so publicly and involving solicitors and the police. You know, it seems a bit unnecessary in a way. Kimberly says the monthly might have only earned £1. Well, I don't know. I'm just using those forecast figures for those revenue. But if that's a forecast figure of like thousands of pounds per month, I think it's unlikely to only be £1. So I'm just using those as ballpark figures. I'm not saying that, I'm not presenting them as precise figures in any way whatsoever. Wolvers Plays writes, John and morals in the same sentence. You're having a laugh, Llama. I'm not going to comment on that. Oh, Sam Harley Wilmore puts, no, you don't mention the headstone. Llama, please, I don't want the hassle. Well, I would invite you, Sam, to email me, please. And I'm quite happy to have a dialogue with you about that privately. But I have given some tentative thoughts about that in one Facebook post that I made. So I realise it's obviously a very sensitive subject, but I would ask you, Sam, if you would kindly email me. Tammy says, I think your breakdown and evidence has been very fair for both parties. Thank you. Matt McCass says, Llama, you can at times be very fair and just. I mean, at times. I'm always fair. I'm always very fair. Donna says, I believe Llama has been very fair to both teams, to be honest. Thank you. We're approaching the 2-hour mark now. I wasn't quite anticipating it would be that long, but I hope that people have found it a useful presentation that I've done this evening, and putting my thoughts out about this. You know, I'm not in my goal has not been about attacking anyone or anything like that, or taking sides. I'm just trying to present things fairly and be fair to both parties. PJ says she wants the mod spanner. No. Sunnyside says, missing you on Facebook. When are you back? I'm banned on Facebook. I've had several bans in quick succession, all after that coalition was formed. I've never had a problem before with my posts, but they're clearly getting reported and being dealt with by Facebook because they're being reported. I mean, I wasn't the most recent post that got removed that earned me a 30-day ban. John's business page, his Facebook page, they were officially asking their supporters to report my posts just because I'd linked videos, not used the content of them, just put in a link to John's videos, John Sixthsense videos, as part of the body of the text of my posts. And they encourage their supporters to report that. And someone was saying, yeah, I've reported that, and I've reported it as hate speech. Well, there was no hate speech. Yes, of course you can ask questions. There was no hate speech. So they were llamas don't get married, I'm afraid, Donna. No, we don't do that. The llama mating system doesn't work in a marital way. No, I'm not able to appeal to Sunny. I'm not able to appeal to Facebook. There's no option to appeal, and because this has occurred a number of times, the sanction that I get each time is increasing. So it went from 3 days to 7 days to 30 days. The grounds of which they took down my post made no sense whatsoever. So people are just reporting my post because they don't like them. This never happened before. This has only happened in the last few weeks. John Sixthsense has said a number of times on live streams, he said that he's going to get my page taken down, that he is willing to use his influence and contacts with Facebook to get my page taken down. He said that about other pages and groups on Facebook too. And yet people come on to my live chat like earlier saying, why are you timing out John Sixthsense? Why isn't he able to speak? Well, look, if he wants to take my page down and censor me in that way, maliciously reported for no reason, why should he have any moral entitlement to speak on my platforms? Regardless of that, he's been banned from my platforms for a number of months. separate from that issue because of the way that he was commenting on my Facebook page to other people, and the behaviour was unacceptable. So I banned him eventually. And Jojo is also banned. They know they're both banned. And I've advised them a couple of weeks ago, I advised them by email that all their mods are banned on my platforms too. And all their staff members are banned because they've basically declared war on my channel and my page. If you're making deliberate efforts to get me taken down, you lose your any moral right to write on my pages, I'm afraid, whoever that is. Whoever that is. You lose any moral right to write on my platforms if you've declared and you are taking actions to take my pages down. No way. No way do you have any moral right to write on my platforms. And regardless of that, John and Jojo were both already banned months ago. I can't remember exactly when it was. January, I think it was. So a few months. So they have no right to be posting. And if they are posting on my platforms when they know that they're banned, I would argue that that is trolling. And yet they claim to be anti-trolling. Kimberly says, I prefer these live reports than the Facebook ones anyway. What, you prefer me talking rather than writing? You don't like reading, you'd rather hear me. Mama Cass says, Llama doesn't make money from it out of choice. I feel personally he deserves to be monetized as he works hard on what he's. If I wanted to be monetized, I'm sure that I could. I've got over 1,000 subscribers. It's my choice. I don't wish to be monetized. I don't want any money. I don't want any advertising. I don't want any donations. I've always been entirely independent. I don't do this for any financial gain. That's not why I do what I do on my channel and page. Dee Dee, right, you're only obliged to Jojo. She asked to be banned. She did ask to be banned, and I banned her. And then she complains when she gets banned. I mean, in subsequent to that, I would have banned her anyway. But if you ask to be banned and I ban you, then don't bloody complain about it. Charlie Ranger says, where are you from? I am part of the Longleat Zoo, part of the Llama branch. Kimberly says, yeah, I prefer how we can all chat within the conversation. Too many nasty comments on the Facebook posts. Donna says, don't put that Doug music on. Use in some lives, we'd rather in some lives, we'd rather listen. What's Doug music? I don't know what that means. I can't believe Bear Shortly writes, I can't believe how much drama there is when it comes to the paranormal community. It's sad they're all full out. Yes, indeed, there is a lot of drama in the paranormal community. It's a very strange community, which is why I cover it in the way that I do, because it is rather fucked up. Sunnyside says, I prefer this way as well. Tammy says, it's nice to be able to chat, comment without the fear of being blocked. Oh, well, there's always the prospect of being blocked. Do you know how many people complain that I block people and I ban people? Well, there's limits to what I'm prepared to accept. Do you know how many people are technically banned from my channel at the moment? About 5. From my YouTube channel, there's only 5 people banned. Blocked. There's only 5 people actually blocked. There's more than that are banned. but there's only 5 people who are actually blocked. But it's only been since I've been on blogging regularly on Facebook that I've had to end up banning loads of people on my platforms because of how they behave. There's limits to what is acceptable, and ideally I allow people that I write about to write on my post, which is fair enough. But if they're not going to behave in a reasonable manner, then you're going to get sanctioned, and ultimately you will get banned. And there's certain people who I just will not entertain at all, who I don't want on my platforms, and get banned, but they get done for very good reasons. Very good reasons. That's right, Elizabeth, but if you don't behave, you get blocked. Yeah. Mama Cass writes, Llama is very fair and considerate, but those who just attack, he won't give an audience to. I respect that. Well, there's ways of saying things and doing things, aren't there? And Donna says, do you feel there's been more drama since COVID? Not really. And if it is, I think the implication of the question is it because of COVID? Well, I mean, you've got the issue about people like reporting teams because they don't think they should be going out during lockdown, so they got that aspect of it. So that all brings a lot of drama around it, doesn't it? And then you've got some teams that won't go out because they don't think you should, and they get resentful about the teams that have. So that element has come about. But I mean, going back to before a year ago, I mean, Mark Smith used to be constant drama on his channel, PixTV, but he's been absent since July until winter, and he's been very quiet on the drama scene since he restarted his Paranormal channel. So far, Ghosts of Britain have been very quiet generally on drama. They haven't really done any since last October, except for recently with this coalition, which I don't understand why they've decided to get in bed with who they have. Sophie says, I think you're fair, Llama, if I'm honest, thank you. As I said in the presentation, Kelli Bond didn't want me to do these live streams today. She strongly objected to me doing them. Do you think I've done her an injustice or been unfair, or I've said something out of order or anything like that? I think I've been as fair as I possibly can to both sides. I'm not taking any sides. I'm not favourable to any side here. Tammy says, I never usually comment. I normally just like to hear both sides of an argument, but I really don't like to comment as it's not really any of my business, to be frank. Charlie has put a question. I'm not aware that he has. In fact, I'm going to remove that comment. I'm going to remove that. Sorry. I don't mean to time you out, but I will have to as a consequence of removing that comment. I don't know if he did. Are you referring to some message screenshot? Because with all these message screenshots, there's always the scope that they're not genuine. So it's always, I'm not getting involved in that, I'm afraid. DD says, Llama, do a live on your opinion on the new Facebook group about trolls bullying group the three have made. Oh, that, yeah. Well, that anti-bullying group that they've made, I mean, to me, it seemed to be, well, certainly at the beginning, seemed to be more of a hate group, if anything, and contrary to what they were attempting to do. Oh, apparently, John says that I'm one of the worst. I think he said one of the posts. Did you notice that when they did that coalition live stream about announcing their coalition, the three teams, they showed loads of screenshots for like 1.5 hours, and then they brought me up a bit near the end, and they didn't provide a single screenshot of anything I'd done ever or even I don't think even a single screenshot from any comments on my page, even. Yet they were calling me a troll and a bully. Really. Donna says, no, I think you have been fair, and I think based on the pit evidence, I don't know what the typo is there, Kelly is owed £270. That's certainly one perspective on it. Bear Shortly says, I think you're being fair on both sides. Mama Cass says, people always go on about you like you're the biggest baddie ever. That was started amongst two in particular and carried on by more. Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, if one definition of bullying is when a larger group of people or someone with more power bullies someone who's more vulnerable, which I think is a general definition of what bullying is, then with these coalitions, you've got like in total like 1.5 million supporters against me, and I've got a page of say 2,000 followers on my Facebook page. You know, I think they need to be careful about the optics of that, and you know who is actually bullying who here. Did you like the song I did at the start? Would you like another song? Well, at the end, I think we're at the end now, and I'll do maybe a song to end the live stream with. You don't buy your followers? No, I don't buy anything. I don't buy any followers. No, I have no reason to want to buy any followers. But it's becoming very difficult for me to be active on my Facebook page anymore. Elizabeth says, no, sing it. Didn't you like my song? I'm going to play a short song that's pre-recorded to end the night. So thank you very much for everyone who's watched tonight's live streams. Thank you for participating in the chat. Liz is joking. So I'm going to do another song now, and I will review. I'm sorry if I've missed your comment or not responded, but what I would do is tomorrow or when I can, next week maybe, I will go through all the comments and I will read them all that you've put in the chat, okay? And if I need to moderate anything, I will delete any inappropriate comments. So thank you for tonight, and I'll leave you with this song here. Okay, good night for now, and I'll leave you with the song. Now is the time to say goodbye, goodbye. Now is the time to yield aside, yield it, yield it. Now is the time to wend away until we meet again some sunny day. Goodbye. Goodbye, I'm leaving you, skittle-eye. Goodbye, I wish upon goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, well, I'm leaving you, skittle-dum. Goodbye, I wish upon goodbye. La 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 la. Goodbye, goodbye, I'm leaving you, skittle-eye. Goodbye, I wish upon goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, I'm leaving you, skittle-dum. Goodbye, I wish upon goodbye. La 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 ma.
goodbye. I'm leaving you all goodbye, goodbye. I wish you fun goodbye.